Okay, so I was showing someone, he was asking if this is not slower than doing, like, for example, a group by in the database. And of course it's slower. The database are way faster at doing this than PHP. The thing is that sometimes it's not convenient to do everything in the database, especially when you select a bunch of data, for example, a post and a list of comments. And if you want to format the comments just by, I don't know, transforming the body or the title of the comment or the commenter in some way, it might be just better to do in PHP. So he asked then if we could just use collection separately from the query. And yes, this is a collection is a function. That's a function available in KPHP. From an array, it returns a collection object. And from that collection object, you can then do collection stuff. For example, the sum of the elements. Okay? So remember collection as a function because it's quite handy.
Well, I tried this count to count the number of objects, but it didn't allow me.
To count a what?
Just the count of the number of objects in the collection.
There's no count method. This doesn't exist. Yeah. There's no count for collections. That might be a bit sad, but it's a design decision. How do you count? Well, it's quite easy. I'm going to show you why there is no count. Imagine this. So I have this collection. And collection has this function called append. Just reassign it to A. So how many elements do we have in the collection? Well, it depends. I have 4. I have 2 first, and then I appended 2 more. So if I do toList, I actually have 4. But what happened? What can you see that is weird here? I lost the keys. But if I want the keys, I can call to array. But I only have 2 elements. What is the actual count? Yeah. It's a Schrödinger collection. Can be can be 2, can be 4. So that's why there's no count, because there's no right answer to that question. It becomes the right answer once you convert to something you can count. For example, and let me show you again why there's no count. This is the sum of the 6 elements, or the 4 elements. This is the count of the 4 elements. But if I do to array, and then I do array sum, then it's less. So it depends on what you think or what you know the collection is. If it's a key value collection, then you return to array and then you can count. I mean, count is not that difficult. If you want the count at the end, you just do count A to list. That's why it was decided to not have a count, because counting is actually easy in PHP. Sorry to disappoint, but there was a there's a difficult reason behind this.
Can you scroll a little bit up to see the two different initial, like the two lists? Again, one was no, one more. So A1, B2, and then A5. Okay, and that works without conflicts of the keys collections.
Yeah, because remember that the collections are lazy. Collection has not done anything yet. It just knows there are two collections that at some point need to be appended to each other. In fact, if I do this, for each A as K V.
In other words, that you can say elements of collections don't need to be unique.
1 second, let me finish this and then I'll answer that to you. So if I do for each element in the collection as key value, then I get this. Well, let me just add some spaces. I get A1, B2, so I get all the elements. I can actually get all of them. But it's not the same as doing this to array, which is collapse all the array. That's basically like doing a unique by key. That's basically what it's doing. And I get 2.
And always select the last ones.
Yeah, it's like an array merge. So you have this, then it puts on top and on top and on top until it gets the final result.
Just when it executes, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you indexed by and then did the array, could you split them out to make it for it?
If
You indexed it essentially, the collection, and then cast array, you'd end up with 4 in your array because it wouldn't overwrite the key.
if I do index by,
Well, it's your collection method, right?
I have A, right, which it has 4 elements in theory. And you want to index by what?
Just something that's not, reduces the overlap.
No, it's already indexed, so I cannot index again. So that won't solve anything. What I can do is, if you have any familiarity with Python, is that you start learning to never have keys. It's better to not have keys. So you do, instead of having key value and working with key value, you work with pairs. So stuff like this. This would be the key, and this would be the value. And another, and again the key, and another value. So if you have collections of those, then you get the actual count all the time. And then at the end, you can group by the first one in the array, and you get a keyed array. So the last method that I wanted to show in this was countries. The last method I wanted to show was chunk. So if I do countries count, remember that count is not a method in collections. This is a method in the query. Find count. I get 239. There are not too many countries. Let me try cities, which is a bit more. Cities. T get cities. Then I do cities. Find count. That's 4,000 cities. I can do find chunk 20. Take 1. What is that going to return? Difficult question? It returns a collection. Remember that?
20 from behind or something?
Well, then step by step. Chunk 20 is break. Let me just cast it to array so it's visible, or to list. It returns a bunch of elements, of bunch of arrays of 20 elements each. So I can do take 1, and now I get the first chunk of 20. So that's actually a good thing, because if I have a lot of data, I can chunk in 20s, then map with a saver function, and then call, sorry, not going to run it, but the idea is that you have a saver function, or whatever you're doing, transforming function, and then call each, and then in chunks of 20, it will run, well, these 20 cities, transform, save. 20 more, transform, save. 20, 20, 20, or 100 or 1,000, the chunk size that is actually good for your server. So instead of loading all the database in memory to create something or to say something, then you chunk in 20. So if you have a giant CSV file where you need to load in your database, well, you read it. That's actually a nice example. I'm not sure if I have a CSV file with me. No, I don't think I have a nice CSV with me. But that would have been a nice example, though. Let's do that as an example later. I'll jump in a second to another topic. Is collections kind of clear, a bit clearer now, what they do? And what the benefit is? Can actually someone here in the room tell me why they would use collections instead of loops?
They're iterators. Crazy fast.
Because iterators are fast?
Use less memory and
Yeah.
can default with the database because we don't have this very complex queries.
Yeah, we remove complexity from the queries. Not in that bandwagon, but that's true. It's easier to write PHP code than think about a query. Yeah, there and then you. Mm-hmm.
Fit like a query builder where you build up stuff and it doesn't execute until it needs to, or you make it.
Yes. Yeah, there was. Did you?
For batch processing.
Batch processing. That's actually one of the best reasons for using collections. You have so much data that you cannot have in memory, so you go in batches to process.
It's simpler code, it's easier to read.
And finally, that's my favorite reason for using collections. It's easier to read. When you have a lot of loops and then you're changing the keys and then accumulating something in another variable and so on and so on and so on, it becomes really difficult to read. Remember our example? Yeah.
How are they working in batches with a single MySQL query?
Sure.
So I mean,
Remember.
so we have chunks of 20, right? Because we don't want to use a lot of RAM memory, but also at the same time we only had one query, and let's say in the database we had 10 years of the records. How is that actually working?
Okay, so I'm gonna get cities, and I'm gonna call cities find. Let me actually do this. Echo. What's the function for getting memory? Memory. Get peak. Cannot remember. Get peak memory. Or not. Usage. It's something like that. I cannot remember. I always have to Google it.
Memory get usage.
Yeah, peak usage. That's the one I want. So I'm using 3 megabytes right now. So I get the CDs and I find this should barely change the memory. Didn't. I just created a query object. If I find to list, hmm? And I get the memory peak, it says 7. It doubled the memory. Even though, if you think about it, sometimes you get concerned a lot about memory. When in a table that has 4,000 records, it barely doubled my memory by 3 megabytes. So it's like, give me 1,000 more. Thank you. But yeah, so let me start again. So we start with a short memory peak. We know that 7 is our worst that we can do. And I can do find. And there's this special function called buffer results false. So don't load them in memory. Get them from the database one by one.
Now I was wondering why you would say take less. That makes sense.
Chunk in 20s. And then each. That's going to take some time. Must be callable. Okay, function. What? Abstract cloner. I don't use Symfony. What is this? Oh, that it couldn't actually. It didn't like that. That's fair enough. Is that this console is trying to debug the result of that, which is not debuggable. So let me try again from fresh. And instead of each, I'll get this. Get me this in chunks of 20. I need to tell it to not debug this. How should I do that? So those are the chunks, comma, echo, yay. There you go. Now I have my results, and I can get the peak memory now. So I run the query, I chunked my 20, but the memory is actually lower than somehow than it was before. So I did some garbage collection. So I can now do a 1 by 1 or chunks of 20 and get them from the database. I'm not going to say that this is actually a silver bullet because it has its pitfalls. One is that it's actually slower to get results from the database 1 by 1. So if it's not affecting your server, you can actually load a lot of resources. And especially in PHP 7. And the second problem is this. And you can thank PHP for that. So CDs find. I need to do something first. So cities belongs to countries. Okay. And now cities find buffer. No, I need contain countries buffer results false to list. not exactly the error. I was expecting an error, but not that one. So let me try again to verify that I'm not doing something stupid.
You need to add the plus.
Yeah, but that was the error that I wanted to. Yeah, there you go. This works, but let me just get one again. Take one so you can see the result. It has the countries there. But what happens if I do the opposite? So countries equals t get countries, and countries has many cities. And I'm going to do that. So countries find contain cities, buffer results false, take one to list. I'm surprised that worked. To the point that I think I made an error. Yeah, it is. Has to be wrong. What was the query? I need to investigate this because this either means that in PHP 7 is now possible, was not possible in PHP 5, or that they broke the buffer results feature. I'm using PHP 7. I haven't tested this example in a while. But what used to happen in PHP 5 is that if you try to use a has many with buffer results, MySQL says, no, I cannot do that. But in PHP 7, apparently it's possible. That's nice. In PHP 5, it's not possible because apparently when you have an active result, so it does a query first and then tries to get I think PHP broke, again, buffer results. I'll investigate that later. It's because this list of countries should not be there. If it's buffering the results, how does it know that it has all the... That kind of makes sense.
Would have to do multiple queries?
Yeah.
Has many child?
Well, I need to investigate that. At least in PHP 5, you get an error.
Just work in PHP 5.
Sorry?
Just work in PHP 5.
It does?
Yes.
Okay, I changed something I don't remember. Okay, yes, I did change something. That was a long time ago. But yeah, what I did now is, but this is then what I made it, the way I made it work is that I disregard buffer results. It's like, well, you want you want me to buffer the results, but you want me also to fetch associations, so I better get the association for you instead of yelling at you.
Could you throw an exception instead?
Well, PHP will throw you an exception when it runs out of memory.
So you mean, but you want to buffer results, but it can't work like that?
Yeah, well,
Obviously, the exception would have helped you.
I agree.
So it helps me all the time.
But yeah, the morality of the story is try to not use has many or belongs to many with buffer results. You can use all the has one, belongs to, matching, all of the combinations of queries that create joins instead of another query. You can do that.
If you use the lazy load plugin or lazy loading thing, then buffer results these things?
Lazy loading, yeah, but that would be quite slow. You can do that, but it would be slow because then for each row you need to, yeah, or two actually. Okay, so an exercise for you is using collections. You need to create a CSV file of the cities. You need to export the cities. Let's only show, yeah, all the columns of a city. Export them as CSV files using collection functions. Sounds good? Sounds difficult?
Create a file or just like a string of?
I want a file. Did anyone get to the solution already? Yes? Is it similar to mine?
I have put yes here. I use the method to just make a long project.
That's a good idea.
I just find goal and then
Yeah, for example, if one of the requirements is, please delete the country ID. I want the CSV file without the country ID. And then you cannot use select. So it's a arbitrary requirement that I'm making to you. Or, yeah, it's completely arbitrary. Or let me just not make it that arbitrary. I want the population column says the population is colon the population instead of the number. So I'll map here. Okay, so here's not an entity anymore. Should we try this? So I have Bing, cake, I have my export shell that exports cities to a CSV file. I just go export, I get an error, FPL file object. There you go. Different color even, nice.
any special reason why you
didn't use what?
CakeFest, all the
Yeah, the special reason is that SPL file object can write CSV for me. That's the most special reason. No such file directory. I need to. Things like this. Plus W, so it can create it. No. Isn't it like that? What are the open modes? It's A plus. Almost there. There you go, that was fast. So if I check temp city CSV, I get the CSV. With the population is something. It's almost there. The problem is that I have the ID first, whereas the population is not there. So I'm just gonna trick it a bit with the magic of array merge. Entity array, comma, the population. That's it. Let's try again. No, that was not it. It's not array, it's 2 array. Okay, so I try again to see how it looks like. That's much nicer. Okay, yes?
You said that collections are lazily evaluated, but are they evaluated by columns or by rows? I mean,
By rows.
okay, so for every row, first the mapper is called, and then
Yes.
go back to each, and then again mapper, and then rows, and then
Yeah, for each row, it calls the mapper, and then the each. Actually, it goes the opposite way. It's the each that. No, you can look at it like that. It calls in this order for each row. So this row calls for row number 1, goes through this function, then through this function. Then row number 2, this function, then this function, and so on.
so if some of these functions are relying on external services,
Don't do that.
I don't mean to do that, but
It's asking for a friend. If you change the state of something from the outside, you need to take care. I actually do that sometimes. I do a use, for example, counter, and I do counter plus plus, and then at the end I say this out number of records count. Counter. So if I execute this, number of records, that's the number of cities. So that's one way of having state in a function.
so if each function we use a second counter, that
Yeah, you could use counter here if you try it again.
big count, for instance, and on each iteration we add the big counter, the value counter, we will obtain
Not following.
2 plus 3 plus 4,
Y-
100 plus 100 plus 100. Okay,
You want to use counter where? In each?
no,
Okay. But yeah, you can use counter here if you want. It's not the best way, but yeah, it's a way. That's a lazy way. Okay, so I want you to do the opposite. I want you to create another table in the database called cities2, cities whatever, and load that CSV file into this table using save. And of course, you need to remove the population is. You need to parse the number that is at the end. Is it too difficult or too boring? Raise your hand. No? Okay. You didn't hear me. So the next assignment is, you have this CSV file that we created. Now you need to create an empty table in the database called cities2, and you need to load the CSV file into cities2, and the population needs to be an integer, not a string. Right now our population is saying the population is. You need to strip that and only get the number, and save that. Who's close to the solution or done? Or just following me while I code? No one? Who's doing it? That's not important. Yeah, it is important. Yeah, sorry. So I'm almost there. Just finishing the last 2 lines. Well, my solution is ready. Who was faster? Or who got close? Raise your hand. Close. Who got completely stuck? No, Larry, you didn't even try. Okay. Who thought it was too difficult and then dropped the exercise? You thought? Okay. Let's review my solution, okay? So I'm reading the file here. There's no surprise. And SPL file object has these flags. I can read the file as CSV. I can tell it to omit the empty lines. And I can tell it to omit the new lines as well. Okay? Who knew that so far? Any of you? Nope. I am getting the schema from the table. So to know what the columns are. And then I create a collection with a file. So one cool thing about SPL file object is that it is an iterator, and collection takes iterators for CakeFest. Then I skip the first one. Why do I skip the first one? It's a header. And then I map each line by creating an array where the keys are the schema, the columns, the column names, and the values are each of the columns in that file. I parse the population with YOLO technique. And I return that line. That's basically it for the transformation of the file. At the end, I create a collection with a schema, which is an array with the column names. Why? Well, for actually no reason. That I got confused with another one. Well, that's a problem because, oh no, here it is. That's for another exercise, sorry. So I don't need that. Excuse me. Now it's better. And then, well, for each of the lines, using the cities table, save it. Is that unclear so far, what I did? Is it difficult to understand what I did? Who thinks it's difficult? No one. It looks simple, right? I create a file object, set some flags on it so you can read it as CSV, and then for each line I kind of modify it and then save at the end. Let's try to run that. Let's see how many errors I get. Shell cake import. Again, file object not found. SPL file object. Oh yeah. Let's try again. Save must be an instance of int. Oops. Yeah. That's an important thing to do, which is do it here. Try again. And it's inserting like crazy. It should, well, it didn't take too long. To be an array, boolean, given array combine. Oh yeah, that always happens with the last line. Not sure why PHP does that. So to not trying to find the cause, what I'm gonna do is, if not line, return. Not gonna fight it for now. And let me drop, truncate this table. Yes. Again. Oh no, it's not here. Sorry. Where I need to fix it is upstairs. It's here. It's because it's actually not dropping the new line, so that's annoying. Truncate table. Boom. And same below. So how should I deal with this case, according to you? Here in map, if the line is empty for some reason, I just return. I cannot do any work. How do I prevent this from reaching this object? Yes. So just filter. So it will remove all of the empty stuff. I'll just do it here. And I should not worry about that anymore. Truncate. Try again. Finally. So what do I have here? I have a list of the number, which is 4,080 cities in my database. With population 0. Well, my YOLO technique didn't work. Sorry. Let's imagine that it works, right? To not complicate the example. Yeah. I wonder why, right? I should have created a number. I mean, there are so many cases where in PHP just takes the first number because this is the first number. But in this case, no. In this case, it's 0. PHP. So how can we improve this? It took some time, even though it was only 4,000 cities. Imagine that you have a couple 100,000. What problem do you see? Yeah, somewhere? I did.
It's doing most of the same.
Yeah. How can we improve that?
Check
Yeah, we can basically just chunk in hundreds. Now it's lines. And if I'm not mistaken, now we have a save many. Let's try that because I'm not 100% sure. That was Admat who implemented it recently. Can you verify that for me? Save many, is it in master? See? Is it? Fantastic. I'll just try that. And that was it. So I should see only one commit every 20. Or every 100, actually. Yeah. And that hopefully takes less time. Let's actually try with 1,000 to see how it works. Truncate. Yes. So every 1,000, do that. That was it. And it has the same number. So this is basically how you do background processing or batch processing with a new ORM and with the collection functions. Someone that can verbalize the awesomeness of this in a few words? Yay! Well, I hope that you have learned something with this, like you have a new tool in your belt for dealing with data that is not just ugly loops and, well, just PHP in general. And you have like a cleaner way in your mind, like or a better understanding of how to do stuff in clear steps, as in a pipeline with this. So good. Anything in specific that you want me to show around this? Can it be now? Yeah. I'm open for questions. We have a break in a few minutes, apparently. Surprise. I'm waiting for questions. Until I don't get a question, you cannot go out.
Find the difference between every and each.
What is the difference between doing every and each? Every will return a Boolean if each of the elements in the collection passes a test that is inside the function. So for example, you want to check that every element is an entity, it will return true or false. So every is like will return this line instance of collection, for example, of entity. Each doesn't care about each will return the same collection at the end. That's what it does. And after running over all of it. Someone else? Yeah?
Same question as before, but with chunking in the middle. Does this execute 10 times the map callback, then chunks it all, and then each callback?
This map is called 4,000 times.
Okay.
Because it's for each line. But the each is called 5 times.
But is the each callback executed after 1,000 of the maps callbacks?
Yes. After exactly 1,000 callbacks, the each function is executed.
Okay.
And then the next 1,000 each, the next 1,000 each, and then only ID.
So chunk just groups.
Exactly. It buffers until it gets 1,000. When it has 1,000, it passes along to the next callback.
Whenever you're thinking about collections, right, like you said earlier, right, think about it like a pipeline, and that's really the way that you want to think about it, right? Like here's a set of tasks that happen, and here's a thing that happens, and here's another thing that happens.
Yeah. To repeat what he said, you need to think of it as a pipeline where the return argument of the previous function has completed already. But it doesn't mean that the collection is still done processing. So in this case, map has completed its work for the next one with its chunk, but there are still 4,079 more elements in the collection too.
So if I wrote eco A in map and then eco B in each callback, I'd see 1,000 A's and then 1 B, then another 1,000 A's and then 1 B.
That's correct.
Thank you.
To make that more clear, I can do this. What is that going to return? Only 1,000. So if I run that in my database, it will only create 1,000 of them.
The map function wouldn't be executed for the rest.
The map function will only be executed 1,000 times. Yeah.
Can you use 2 chunks?
You can use 2 chunks. I'm not sure. But I need to understand what the semantics of that are. So if you have a chunk of 20, it gets, or 1,000. Yes, you can do that. Yeah. So the chunk of 1,000 will be split again in chunks of 20. Not sure if that's useful or not. But yeah, you can do that, definitely. Sorry? But you just set the chunk to the smallest of the two that you want, and it's exactly the same result with less code. Yeah. Yeah, so let's have a break again and see you for the last part of the workshop.